right, Derek, I want you to put yourself in the shoes of a college basketball head coach. How mad would you have to be in order to punch an opposing coach
Um,
or slap?
I feel like I'm going to take flack for this because I think the reaction to what Juwan Howard did was way overblown.
In some ways, yeah.
What is it like? He's
Like
setting a bad example for his team. I mean, don't take a timeout with 16 seconds left or 15 seconds left or whatever it was. Have a little bit of sportsmanship. And also, don't make them walk through a handshake line at the end of the game. There's no point to it. We got these guys. You're going to get me off on a tangent. We want everyone to be super fired up. It would take nothing at all for me to.
It's not where I thought you'd go.
For me to haul off and if it was you and me on opposite sides, it would take nothing at all. Nothing at all. All you got to do is like keep your starters in. Wait, like just a little bit past when the rules of engagement dictate you take them out, and it's on.
I'm glad you feel that way, Derek.
I don't care, man.
You'd be a great college basketball coach.
Malice at the Palace Part 2. Hey, Juwan Howard's a great basketball coach.
Do you want to form an alliance with me?
Absolutely, I do.
What up, you two? That is Spenser Davis. I am Derek Peterson. He runs the Saturday Road website, ACC coverage. I've got Saturday Out West. That's Pac-12. This is the Alliance video. We're back again for another week. Spencer, the topic this week, I have in my notes, Duke is a so-so national title contender. So-so. So my question for you, is that fair, or are they a legitimate national title contender?
I would say they're legitimate. I mean, they've had a few bad losses. Don't get me wrong. They lost to Virginia. They lost to Florida State. They've lost to Miami at home. They've had some bad losses, but this is still a team with 4 first-round picks in their starting lineup at least. And I think Wendell Moore is going to get drafted as well. And Trevor Keels may or may not be this year, but I feel confident saying they've got at least 4 first-round picks in their starting lineup, which is definitely the only college basketball team right now that can say that. They're 5-1 in quad one games, with their only loss coming way back in November to Ohio State. They're a team that gets up for these big games. And even in their losses, they haven't lost a game by more than 5 points all season, which is impressive. So even when they do end up losing, they're at least keeping it close. They're not a team that's ever going to get blown out. Like we saw with Gonzaga in the national title game last year. That's never going to be this Duke team. And they've got so many other pieces that you usually look for on a title team. They have an elite rim protector in Mark Williams. They've got pretty good guard play with Trevor Keels and Wendell Moore. They're not elite. They're not going to be, those two aren't going to be, an elite backcourt. There's no true point guard necessarily there. But then they also have Paolo Banchero, who is an amazing operator on their perimeter and can score and can pass, can make plays. He's going to rebound. He's going to be one of the most physical guys on the court. So, yeah, I think that they're very legit, despite the fact that, they're a borderline top 10 team right now in the rankings and even in Ken Pom and some of the other computer models.
Okay, let's circle back to the point guard piece of it, because that is a question that I want to ask you. But there was a brief little lull, something that happened kind of in there where Duke wanted Paolo Banchero to be more aggressive. What was that about? Is that something to be like worried about, that he can maybe kind of like go through a lull?
I don't know if it's him. He's a guy that always wants to make the right play, right? I mean, he's a smart player. If he gets double teamed, his tendency is to pass out of it. There was a game a couple weeks ago where Coach K, I don't want to say called him out, but he said after the game, Paolo needs to take more shots. And, because I think he only took 1 shot in the second half of that game. And it was just because he was being double teamed, and the way that he was defended, he was just trying to make the smart play. That's something that a talented freshman like him, it's not necessarily a bad problem to have. I mean, he still leads this team in scoring. Like, this is not like a Ben Simmons lack of offensive aggression problem. I think it's just him being a freshman and sort of feeling out when it's time for him to take over. And overall, I think he's done a good job of that this year. I mean, he leads them in scoring most nights. He had 17 in their most recent game, which led the team. And, the thing with him is sometimes the outside shooting efficiency wanes a little bit, but man, his jumper looks pure and he can get to his shot, he can get to his pull up, he can get to the basket, he can score in so many different ways. And again, he's a great passer. So, I mean, Duke has a few problems, but I wouldn't put Banchero at the top of the list.
Let's not evoke Ben Simmons' name anymore. I don't want this to turn into like a Candyman situation where, we say it one more time and all of a sudden Duke's entire roster forgets how to shoot the basketball. Okay, the point guard thing, because like when prognosticators talk about the NCAA tournament, one of the things that always gets brought up is you look at guard play, you look at defense. Does Team X have a point guard capable enough of getting them into their stuff when the game bogs down, of making key plays for other teammates when it's tight, of making shots for himself when it's tight? Does Duke have a point guard, or is it just kind of like, is this like you laid out this kind of non-traditional way of running the offense? Is that I guess they can massage that into something?
It's definitely an ensemble. Like there's no Jaden Ivey on this team. I mean, if you put Jaden Ivey on this team in place of like Jeremy Roach, then, it would be lights out, right? That would be an ideal situation. But, Jeremy Roach, Wendell Moore, and Trevor Keels all handle the ball a lot. So does Paolo Banchero, and they're all pretty good at getting to their spots when they need to, and are mostly efficient at it. But yeah, I mean, you're right. There's not an Ayo Dosunmu on this team, right? Like, and Jaden Ivey isn't necessarily produce point guard all the time, but if you need a bucket, like you have him that you can go to. And I think Paolo is that guy for Duke, and he's good enough on the perimeter to operate that way. But yeah, I see your point. That's probably the one sort of missing piece from the guard spot that you would want to see. But at the same time, like on any given night, Keels, Moore, and Roach can give you that production.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's something to get like. I mean, like their talent is going to be better than the teams that they're going to face in the tournament more often than not. Their just pure talent is going to be better. What was the NCAA did the early bracket reveal? What was their seed? Were they a 2 or a 3?
They've been a 2 for in most things that I've looked at. Like Joe Lenardi has them at a 2. I think most of the other bracketologists have them in that range. I don't have what the NCAA released in front of me, but I'm expecting them to be a 2, or maybe, depending on how the rest of the season goes, they're probably not going to lose another ACC game. Ken Palm is projecting them with at least a 70% chance to win all the remaining of their regular season games. And so if they, at least get to the final of the ACC tournament, have a good showing there, I would expect them to be a 2 seed.
Yeah. So I didn't mean to put you on the spot like that, but I mean, like, they're going to be one of the top teams in the tournament. So like the fact that they don't necessarily have a literal point guard running the show with a high usage rate. It's not, I mean, like that's something that people will talk about, but I don't know that's necessarily something to like nitpick with them. The big thing with them, and really the big thing with any team when you get into national title discussion, is defense. And I wrote a piece for my website a week ago where I looked at Ken Palm goes back to the 2002 season. So I looked at all the national champions since then. There have only been 2 teams that have won a national championship without possessing both a top 20 offense and a top 20 defense using Ken Palm's adjusted metrics. 14 of those 19 national title winners have had both a top 15 offense and a top 15 defense. When I wrote that piece, Duke was in that category, top 15 in both categories. As of now, as of recording this, and Ken Palm changes all the time, but as of recording this, they are 10th in adjusted offensive efficiency per Ken Palm and 23rd in adjusted defensive efficiency. So it's gonna kind of ebb and flow as the season goes, and you play tougher teams in given weeks. But like the teams that won without having both were like Syracuse in 2003, North Carolina in 2009, the UConn teams in 2011 and 2014, and then 2021 Baylor. So if you go look at the profiles for those 5 teams, you have Baylor, which ranked second offensively, killer offense. And that North Carolina team ranked first in offensive efficiency. So basically, like, have Jim Boeheim as your coach, or be UConn, which just breaks all logic anytime the calendar turns to March, or have a really, really good offense. And Duke has a really, really good offense. They are right now, they have the 6th best offensive rating in the country, which is points per 100 possessions, which is really good. They're also 50th in defensive rating. So points per 100 possessions.
Not so good. Yeah.
They don't force a ton of turnovers. They give up offensive rebounds, but they have the best 3-point defense in the ACC. So my question for you is this defense good enough to lead Duke to a national title? Because I think we can confidently say right now that their offense, with what we just covered, their offense is good enough to get them to a national title and get them within reach of a national title. Is the defense good enough?
Yeah, I'm not too worried about the defense. And maybe that's a little bit naive. But if you look at this team, I mean, they're so athletic, right? Like AJ Griffin, who we haven't talked about yet, is a great wing to have on this team, a great fit, who's going to knock down threes and can defend on the wing. Paolo Banchero is not an amazing defender, but he's passable. And then, Mark Williams is one of the best shot blockers in the country. And I think we all remember, what happened with the Kentucky Duke game at the beginning of the year when Trevor Keels just completely shut down Ty Washington. So, and Wendell Moore's a good defender. Jeremy Roach is a good defender. You've got good pieces there. And I think at the end of the day, I just expect Duke to be the big game team that they've been all season long. Like I said, they're 5-1 in quad 1 games. That includes a win over Kentucky, Gonzaga. They beat the heck out of Notre Dame. They beat the heck out of North Carolina. These are the tough games that have been on their schedule, other than the Ohio State game, and they've passed with flying colors on offense and defense. I mean, they kept Notre Dame, who's been a pretty good offensive team, to 43 points on their home floor. So I do think Duke is capable of being a, maybe not an elite defensive team, but just a notch or two below that. And I do think that if the bracket breaks right for them and the shot goes in at the right time, that it's not going to be a huge concern.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, like, I say all that, and as Baylor showed last year,
yeah,
well, got an incredible offense.
Let's address this. I mean, I know what Ken Palm says, but Baylor's defense last year was no slouch. I mean, they had Jared Butler and Davion Mitchell in the backcourt, who are 2 of the best college guard defenders that we've seen in the last few years. So they had some pretty good defensive pieces too. Yeah,
well, I mean, it bears saying that talking about a top 20 defense or top 20 offense and Ken Palm, there's what 320 or 30 or so teams that are in there. I mean, if you're top 20, you're top 10% of college basketball. That's
even better. Yeah,
that's good. Yeah. Cool. Duke national title. I'm putting money on it.
I don't know what I think. Last I heard, they were like plus 1,200 or something. I probably wouldn't. I wouldn't say the value's there for that, but. If you're casting a wide net, then sprinkle some on the Blue Devils and on Coach K's final season.
Especially so if they are in Auburn's side of the bracket.
That would be a very interesting matchup.
I would put money on them on Auburn's side of the bracket.
Yeah, that would be a very interesting matchup.
I would not want to be on Kentucky's side of the bracket. Also, can we talk about how insane it was that Kansas was a number 1 seed and Kentucky was the number 2 in Kansas's region?
That seems a little unfair to both Kansas and Kentucky, depending on which way you look at it.
a little bit. Yeah.
It's like Kansas is the number 1 seed, but they have to play the team that beat the soul out of them on their home floor. And then Kentucky's looking at them like, why aren't we the number 1 seed?
Yeah.
So it's going to be fun, and Selection Sunday is not too far, just a few weeks away, and I'm excited.
Yeah, March 13th is Selection Sunday, and then the first 4 starts on March 15th. I'm surprised I was able to remember that. I wrote it in the story a couple days ago. That's it, man. Good stuff. It's good to talk to you again.
You too.
We'll be back.
Duke's going to win it.
Duke's going to win it. Put money on Duke. That's Spenser's financial advice.